shirt.
Now?
I like your t-shirt. What does it say? I can see Green Africa something.
No, it is Permaculture Development Network for Change.
Oh, brilliant.
Yeah.
Well,
okay. Tell us a little bit more about it. Oh, Steve, you were saying something.
This was about Permaculture Group. The one I was working with them, it was one of the Permaculture teachers from Australia. She's called Madam Rosanna. She's the one who supporting us to have those t-shirts, and we have distributed those t-shirts for different members who was in the group. So, yeah.
So the group is fully registered and operating in Kakuma?
No, the problem was about the person who was controllers in the group. The project was rejected. It was not ongoing because he wanted to take the group like his owner, his proper group. So as a members was saying that we can't move on that idea. So the group was separated.
Okay, yeah. You know, those are dynamics in project management.
Yeah.
Those group dynamics. And but then the beauty is the ideology stays, you know, the concept stays. And we are happy to see that you didn't lose hope. You're carrying on, you're holding the banner. So still you can do, because remember when we were talking about self-reorganization and leadership,
yes,
yeah, you can still reestablish, even if it means, you know, going through different processes or registering and starting smaller. You reorganize and then pick on. Such things are bound to happen at any point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is we are here, we are progressing, we are still here, and I have a group of people that we want to start implement different activity, especially permaculture.
Yeah, sure. That's brilliant. And it's always wonderful because we have peers like Simon, who is right now on, ourselves and everyone who can be, you know, give you that background support in terms of how best can you reorganize, how best can you move forward. Because the reality is, as long as you have more than 1 or 3 people, certain things are bound to happen. So how do you mitigate? And in the case where the mitigation has failed, how do you resuscitate the situation and then move forward? Oh, Steve, over to you. Sorry. You're muted, Steve.
There we go. Yeah, so greetings everyone, and welcome to part 23 of our part 24 part PDC. So look, we've kind of done it. We've permaculture is looking at the patterns and then maybe creating a kind of Simon, I think you need to mute. Yeah, okay, so let's just think about it. So I've got nothing to present this week other than I think we have to have a conversation between us about where we go next. And the theme, of course, of Principle 12 is change. Creatively use and respond to change. The only constant is change, and we have to work with that. That's and we work with change by observing and interacting, and then by building a plan and building alliances. So I think Bill Mollison used to, on a PDC, you're given so much information. It triggers off so many different ideas, and it's the beginnings of so many different processes. You're thinking of something about water trapment and water storage, soil building and composting. You're starting to see ecosystem gardens as mini ecosystems. You're starting to realize that you are seeing resources differently. You're seeing the potential in the waste stream. You're seeing that anything that is not being fully utilized actually represents an opportunity, because the natural state of things is abundance. Left to its own devices, nature assembles itself into, it builds forests out of nothing, out of just air, water, and soil. So there's a message in that we can begin to understand is as a process is, if we can conduct air, water, and soil, these natural, the energy of the sun, these natural processes, and we build designs, we build systems that catch and store energy, so they build on themselves. They start to regenerate. The more you build soil, the more that soil can absorb and hold water. And the more we have cover that with plants, we start to build more increasingly complex systems. Within those yields that come out of it, we can actually then start to create the tools that we need to actually extend the system. So again, that's the next phase of design. Okay, so let's just wind back a little bit and just think. So in the time that we have left in this course and the momentum that we've created through this conversation, let's think about that, how it relates to us in terms of change, in terms of how we move forward in the times that we're in, to start to build a plan that we can then start to arrange things in a way in which we catch and store energy and develop yields. Can those yields be mutually beneficial? How do we work together in an ongoing way? We're all in physically different places, but we're having the same mindset and we're working towards the same objectives, and we have powerful tools at our disposal, such as Zoom. And I tell you what, these things are becoming much more sophisticated very quickly. So during the course of our PD, let's talk about change. Change is inevitable. We can't stop it, but we can work with it creatively. One of the things that has happened during the course of our PDC, many things have happened, is the AI revolution has kicked off. Artificial intelligence. For better or for worse, big technology companies have set in motion these very complex algorithms that learn, and they have access to all the information that's on the internet, and they're reading it and analyzing it and representing it to us. So I started to even use artificial intelligence to edit the web pages that we're creating for this course. It's change. They're increasingly powerful tools are at our disposal. And so the online world, this technology world, which we're able to access, the fact that I'm talking to you, Andre, through technology is extraordinary. Let's just take a bit of time out. You're sat in Kakuma, Kenya, with a phone. This is like science fiction. When I was a boy, this would have been science fiction. This was beyond Star Trek, that we would be having this conversation in this way. It's truly extraordinary. And that technology, neither you or I are in control of it, but it's there as a tool. Here we are using it. So this is mutual support. I can talk to you directly in the company of other people, and we can create a mutual support group just in this way. So I think that the Sector 39 Academy of Permaculture is what holds this space. You're going to go away, Andre, and you're going to create your project in Kakuma. It's going to be amazing. It's going to be transformational to the people around you. I'm not going to come there and be hammering nails for you or digging, that's going to be for you to organize. But we can support you in all sorts of different ways through our knowledge, through our connections, indirectly through the internet. Now, we also know people, have trained people, made friends with people who also live in Kenya in the same way. So there are, within that network, there are people that you could maybe physically meet up and have mutual support from. And also think about how we can reach through you and connect to lots of people in Kakuma. Oh. That's Stella. Just giving her the link. So I think what we're setting in motion now, this is our Academy of Permaculture, Gerald, and it's us having these conversations and finding ways to do mutual support and starting to develop our own individual plans, which will also in some way fuse together and become mutually supportive. So what we talked about last week was the UNHCR fund that is there, and they're looking for projects that are refugee led. That means that the objectives and the shape of that project will be defined by, if you like, the end users. And those end users could be people there in Kakuma, people there in Nachivali, people there in Biribiri, or anywhere else. But that we can. So this is just this one thing, okay? I want to talk about different projects and different things we could do, but I'm directing this at Andre just because he's there and I know he's in the motion of setting on his journey. So I'm asking the question is, how are we going to use our network to support you in your objectives, Andre, but also so we can learn, our network can learn from your experience. So we're also creating a kind of not an artificial intelligence, but a permaculture intelligence, because we've got to be talking and learning with each other. So only you, Andre, really understand the challenges, the pressures, the opportunities, the resources, the needs there in Kakuma. I can't know. I can guess, but I can't know. So you have to shape the objectives of that project. But we also, have the knowledge to, we know how to grow mushrooms or build cob stoves or design a food forest or a water catchment system. We can help you do that. And so I think that, well, I guess there's a couple of different things. This is what our network, as friends, as colleagues, as comrades in permaculture, we can support each other through our existing network. We don't need any permission from anyone. We don't need any funding. We can do what we can do. The next level is, well, there is potentially funds out there, and if we know how to ask in the right way, and it's never easy, we might be able to win some resources that would then help our network, extend further and to create money for tools and seeds and things. But that comes from us making a plan. So I said this last week is Sector 39, we're not funders. We will never have money to invest into projects. But if we worked together to create coherent ideas and designs, then collectively we can go out and ask for funds, and then we put a bank account in the UK, we're registered in the UK, so that we could be a conduit for some of that, to support those projects to happen. So I'm beginning to think about how our network works and how it just needs to be functional. It just needs to work for us and allow us to develop our ideas. So those are my opening thoughts, and I'm just happy to hear anything. Would anybody like to just chip in? And greetings to Simon and Deborah also, and I think Stella is on her way. So would anybody just like to say anything on that theme? Gerald, were you kind of concurring with what I'm saying there? Is that fair comment?
Yes, absolutely it is. And apparently there are lots of possibilities. And yeah, your mention of the AI is all mind-blowing. We didn't know where this was all heading, but now I think we see where it all heads. And remember when you mentioned that data is the next oil, this is where we are right now. Lots of data and infographics have been put together, lots of corrections have been put together. Now you're having AI. But then one thing I've realized over time is how do you, because it's either two things, either you're on the losing side or you're on the winning side. But then winning means you're taking it on. Yes, it has its own ethical implications and everything. But then if we keep saying, oh, ethically, no, we're not taking it on, we'll be on the losing side because everyone is using it. Yeah, that brings up other concepts, but then, yes, we need to take it on. Two, in terms of how best to progress, how best to support the groups, how best to tap into the current environment, the donor and funding and, support or peer support, the academy overall. It is all now. I think this is the opportune time for it. And probably now, one of the things we are also going to think about is how do we incorporate all these technologies in there, the likes of AI and blockchain and all that, into that support network. And maybe how do we give access or how do we simplify these? Because they are really complicated tools out there. I think since February, I've looked at about 40 plus tools. So it's a whole jungle, it's complicated. And so that we can look at ways on how to break it down for our members and see how best they can utilize this or, benefit from this. Surprisingly, I've been to several meetings and platforms, and even the donors or even the funders are aware that people are using AI to put up bids or to put up proposals. We had a session where one of the funder was even training people on how to generate or to build your idea using AI. So unfortunately, is an irresistible evil that we have at hand. But then how best do we put it at work? And let's see it from a solution-oriented point of view. There could be ethical considerations. We could look at those and see how best do we strike a balance. But then, yes, just as you said, I'm all in for it. And I think this is the time for us to progress. It's interesting that we are on session 23, actually, which is the second last. So it's really amazing. It's been a journey. Over to you, Steve, and probably any other members for.
Yeah. Yeah. Hello. Hello.
Yeah, we hear. Yeah, please, Andre.
Yes, what I can share is it is what you are talking about. As my opinion is, let us finish to learn first, because my vision is first of all here to learn about permaculture, to know more about permaculture, so that maybe I can go in the community, teaching people, and maybe they can know permaculture. On that point, about about your question, it is for us to share ideas, and in that ideas, everyone can share his idea, so that we can know in which way we can move on, because we can't move without be together. There is a word say that change begin with you. I can change my community first of all, myself first. So let us focus on what we are doing, so and to reach our goal. So I'm hearing for everyone, and I can say the decision that we will be agreed, I'm here for that. I'm here for that, and I'm waiting for the decision that we will be having. But always let us move on. We are together. Yeah.
Thank you, Andre. Yes, I hear you, brother. And Simon, please.
Yes. Good evening, everyone. How is that side? So the theme of the day is all about change. It is all about change. And with the change, it begins with you, yourself. And then from the time that we started learning the PDC class, that we started learning about permaculture, generally, it has created some change to some people who were not equipped with the values and the skills and the knowledge of permaculture aspect of production. So to me, I see change as something which is so unique. It is so unique, and it is a dynamic process whereby we are all supposed to adopt. Once change has come, please go with the change and change yourself and change all the systems of your behavior that are surrounding you. And from the time of long ago, where communication was a bit hard, it was really too hard. I would not be in a position to talk to you while looking at you, apparently. That means there has been some great change that has happened. And technology itself has brought good change to us. Not only we are looking into the aspect of technology, but also let us see how are we going to change our communities in terms of crop production, soil management, climatic changes that are coming in. How are we going to change our environment? All of those aspects, we are the ones to bring it into practice. That's why I am saying on my own view that the IT of change has really created great impact to us. Look at the banking systems that we are now using for transferring money from one place to another. Really, that is a great change that we have received. And look, we are now going into oil factories. By that time, they were not there. And it is really something that has changed us. It has really changed us from that primitive ways of behavior to these modern ways of life. And thereby, we are impacting skills to the individuals. Individuals are the ones to go and spread the message or the gospel to others about to change. And once change has reached onto your community, please divert the change and create life to people, and then people will live healthy. People will live healthy. People will be having good production of food. People will change the soil life into fertile one, and people will live healthy. So aspect of change. Must achieve our dreams and our goals that we want to implement in our projects that we opt to. The other issue I wanted to talk about is all about the production as far as change has come in. The aspect of traditional type of farming that people were used to. But once change has came in to turn on the thinking of people and the norms and the values that people are now using, has really given me that the cultural ways that people were used to in their production has really changed. Look, who knew how to create Mandela Gardens? Who knew how to create the guilds? Who knew how to create the raised beds? Who knew how to create that the Delorona stove? Who knew? Who knew to create the Terraphic Mandela Garden? Who knew? None of us knew that, but through change, which change has come through transformation after the PDC or through PDC class that we have attended, it has really created good change to us. And we promise that after the class or after the PDC class, we are going to transform our communities, and we see how change can change them to adopt the ethics, principles, and the values of permaculture. Thank you. That is what I wanted to talk.
Thank you so much, Simon. It's really valuable and really good to hear your perspective. And yeah, as you say, well, it's interesting, isn't it, to think of the journey, perhaps the rural communities that you're referring to that have been on, and then also how the goals have changed. With sort of the sort of industrial model, we're now into the sort of post-industrial world, and a world where the resource is information, as Gerald is saying. We've got to find a world that doesn't need the oil, and all of the energy, the big machines that have caused the pollution and the climate change. So we've got to be smarter, and I think permaculture represents an evolution in thinking. So I think that's a good way of looking at it, Simon. And we can then create all of these new things like food forests and mandala gardens now that we are beginning to understand things with this permaculture mindset. These ethics, if that's what draws us together, is a commitment to understanding earth care, people care, fair share, and that we each initiate change from ourselves as an individual, but in the process, in doing that, that connects us to other people. It connects us to the people around us in our community who might have similar needs to us, or also connects us to other people who initiate change, like what we're doing here now. And I'm just seeing Caroline, we're talking about, so again, back to you slightly, Andre, looking at the needs and opportunities within refugee communities, and Caroline's there saying, where's sort of simple enterprise processes that could be giving real value addition to the outputs from permaculture systems, and also to create small community businesses that can then facilitate. We're much more powerful in developing projects is if we can create our own incomes and create our own resources. So making shampoos and soaps, making bath soaps and bar soaps, breaking bread, pressing oil, we talked about last week, and a real need about that. Okay, Andre, so you're saying in Kakuma, people first need the training about permaculture. We need to get people onto the same page. Okay, I hear you. So the first step there is going to be, how are we going to deliver? How are we going to support you and your team to deliver a training program there within Kakuma? And, you know, you can reflect, Andre, as well, how we've broken it down into steps. We've used the idea of the 3 ethics and 12 principles. Now, you might want to approach it in a different way. You might want to come at it with a practical start. But I think if we can get people into this idea of, because I think, look, the most attractive thing about permaculture is it begins with you and how you meet your needs. Everybody's interested in that. It's how you feed yourself. That's your primary responsibility. But FairShare says, but don't be greedy. And as you meet your needs, form alliances with other people and help them meet theirs. People care. So if we can get beyond the selfish, competitive mindset and go, no, in permaculture, we're working together. We're trying to build community, and we're trying to, you know, work for mutual benefit. And those ethics help us come together and find that common ground. And for me, that's where the permaculture process begins. Taking responsibility. Hey, we're in a difficult situation. Let's try and make it better. Let's try and find ways we can come together to work forward. And it's going to be stepping stones that bring us, you know, in that direction. And you can tap into the knowledge base of our academy to help, you know, to begin that process in Kakuma, and say we can all learn from that as well through using technology in this way. The more information that we share about permaculture through the internet in various different ways, the more the AI learns about it, you know. So I think we have an information sharing responsibility. Yeah. Okay. So well, maybe I've got some. Okay, I shall share my screen. I know what I'm going to do. All right. How do I close the chat now? There we go. So this is. I've just got one ear out because I'm expecting a visitor. I might have to dash off at any moment, so just stand by to jump in. I tried to, last week, after last week's session, I started writing this webpage just to bring together ideas of projects that Sector 39 is interested in developing, and let's say having a conversation about on different themes. And we could focus on different ones, but there's different conversations that people might want to get involved in. Now, the first one is based here in Wales, and so not relevant to the group that's here right now. I'll mention it quickly because this is one of the things that we're doing, and you know, it might be we can all learn from each other. Is over the last 12 years, I've built a friendship with a local farm. It's an animal farm. They rear cows and pigs, and off pasture and off feed that they grow. And they've and I've been going there and teaching permaculture courses there for the last 12 years, occasionally. And from that has become a friendship. And and over time, the farm has allowed me to develop a garden there. I have 20 raised beds arranged in a mandala pattern. And I'm doing, that might just be my visitor. Let me go and check. Sorry, Gerald, would you just mind holding the fort? I just want to go and check. I might have a visitor coming.
Okay, please. Yeah, so as we wait for Steve, let's have a chat about the different projects. I've been actually looking at the projects that have been listed by Caroline in the chat. Pretty interesting. Let me talk to you from the perspective of a trainer. Do you know that with each of those projects, using AI or using one tool like, I don't know if you people have heard of Chat GP and all that, GPT. So what happens, you can draw out a full training template and obviously localize it. The interesting bit is at the end of each and every response you get from this AI tool, it tells you, please ensure to localize this material. But at the end of the day, it will give you the basics. It will give you actually sometimes the details, depending on how much it can access. Obviously, it's accessing it from the internet, it's accessing from books, online books and all that. So there is lots and lots of potential for you as trainers and as people who are not looking at just being practitioners, but aiming to do training, not simply to copy paste, but this is where the ethical side of things comes in. It's helping guideline or a starting point. Take time to go through what you're going to dish out. Take time to look through it. Take time to, to localize it. It would be good to try and look out, for these technologies. Talking of the academy, I think also now this will be also another interesting step. How about you say, personally, or me as Caroline or as Simon, my projects are going to be on, let's say, developing training materials or training resources. Localize them. You can even decide to write some in ETSO, right? Because you're looking at the local community. Yeah. You could be lucky enough, or maybe someone like Andre, you can decide to do some in French and maybe some in Lingala, because whereas you're lucky enough to know English, some people may not be able to. And actually you may realize that even there are tools out there that are able to do this translation.
Yeah.
So you develop materials, you develop that will be also a role that you can play. It's a project you can take on. Yeah, are we starting to get ideas? Are we starting now? Because actually now at this point, this could be even our design phase. We are into the design phase of our project or our PDC, and design goes beyond simply the mandala gardens or the farm designs or the homesteads and all that. Let's think broadly, and we go ahead, you know, to start now thinking about design, even in terms of things like enterprise development. It's a design. If you're going to put together a training resource, it's a design, because you'll have to think through it. How are you going to deliver it? How are you going to keep people engaged? What is it going to be visual? Is it going to be having lots of videos in it? Is it going to have lots of pictures and image in it? So all those are points of thinking, just as you think about or you observe. Actually now, that is, you're observing, you're thinking, you're interacting. But this time, not on ground or not in the landscape, but probably in the virtual or in the economic landscape. Yeah. Caroline, it would be good to hear from you and maybe how you're progressing, and tell us a little bit more about the projects, those projects listed, and whether you have any sort of plan in place, or whether you, even if it's basic or at the initial stages. Sorry to put you on the spot.
Okay, thank you, everybody. Yes, I think, okay, from my background, I did entrepreneurship training. So I was a trainer, a business trainer for the longest time in Nairobi. But when I relocated back to the countryside, I realized that the challenges were the same, but they could be met differently. So that is how I got into farming. And finally, I got into permaculture. But now we find that there are a lot of post-harvest losses when the farmers farm. Now, when we also look in permaculture, we want to do organic production of our food and a lot of the things that we use. So you find that what usually happens is that there's a lot of post-harvest loss, but if we are able to harvest our produce, take good care of them, you find that one, we can be able to earn more. I'm sorry to sound mercenary, but people are paying top dollar for organic products because they have realized that in Kenya we have a saying that miti ni dawa. You see, so we have a saying that you know, the trees, the plants are actually medicinal, and what you eat determines your health. If you eat healthy, you'll be healthy, you know, and that is like having money in your pocket, because the money that you could have sent out to the doctor, you're going to save it. And good health is also money in your pocket, because when you have ill health, what happens is you'll not be able to be productive. So that is what really, you know, excited me about permaculture, because the women will work less. You know, with permaculture, when you start doing your design, you do so much work. But once the design is settled and the farm is 6 months, 1 year, 2 years old, you find that you don't do as much work, you know. And for the mothers, this is also good for their mental health and even their physical health. They don't work so much, you know. Another thing, they have a lot of free time to do other things. So these are just some of the exciting revelations that I have had to come to terms with when practicing permaculture. Now, we know that in permaculture there is a lot of abundance. No matter how small, a field that you're working, there'll be a lot of abundance. So, when we have this abundance, what do we do with the excess that we get? We know that agricultural products are perishable. So that one brought to my mind, can we value add so that whatever we produce can be used later or can even be sold or buttered? You know, you do butter trade. So you get something else, and in that way, you find that the local communities will be empowered. Now, I am starting with the first one. We are talking of shampoo or liquid soap. When we were training in Naki Valley, we had an opportunity to teach the mamas how to make liquid soap and also bar soap. This is the single one item that every household uses on a daily basis. So you can imagine the kind of money that is draining from the household to those manufacturers. Maybe like if in a case of Uganda, like in Kampala, you find all the money, they're collecting all this money from the poor people and it's going to one individual who owns the manufacturing plant. So I was just trying to imagine in a place like Naki Valley, if people would use, locally manufactured products like soap, it means that even the money, the small money that they get from the UN would circulate just within the Naki Valley settlement. I think that would make a very big change. Then same to something like baking bread. Same to something like baking bread. Imagine if the bread that is being eaten in Naki Valley doesn't have to come from Barara. It is bread that is locally baked. It means that the economy in Naki Valley would change. Then we are looking also at the oil press. A lot of the agricultural products that we grow are all able to give us oil. We can get oil from peanuts. We can get oil from sunflower, from sim, and like oil is very, very costly. It is another item that a family must have and must use on any other day, you see. But if we are able to grow our own oil, you'll be closing that door for your money to go out, you see, because you would grow your own sunflower, and if there is a press nearby, when you need your oil, you just dry your seeds, go to the oil press, get your oil, and the waste from like sunflower, you would carry it back home with you and you'd feed your chicken. You see? So those were just some of the things we were looking at as some of the things that would empower the women. Something I noticed also in Naki Valley, they are drinking a lot of juice. but unfortunately, it's not fruit juice. There are chemicals mixed somewhere in Barara or Kampala and brought, and that is why when as you walk along Naki Valley, you find a lot of plastic bottles littering all over the refugee camp, you see. So we were just thinking, because fruits are there locally. You have grapes, you have passion, they are available locally. So instead of getting these chemicals packed in bottles, people would start taking fresh fruit juice. If it's made hygienically, one, it's very healthy, and two, I'm still talking about the cottage industry, and the local economy would benefit more. Then Nakivale is in Barara. They have those cows with very huge horns. It's a place where milk is in plenty. It's the land of milk. I don't know about honey, but I know for sure there's a lot of milk there. So the mamas were saying, if they could be taught even just how to dry the milk, you know. And I was also thinking, like, they could also be taught how to make cheese, how to make butter, you know. Some of this they could sell, some of it they could use, because milk, when it is, you have to milk your cow every day. But sometimes you cannot consume all that milk, you know, or the milk is highly, highly perishable. So if they could be taught how to value add, I think it would also help the local economy, and as well it could empower the women or the population in Naki Valley. Another thing that we looked at was mushroom production. I know for mushroom production, the single most expensive item would be the seeds and the spores. Now, for mushroom, you just need a mud house. Most of the houses in Naki Valley are made of mud, covered with thatch. So, you'd not really have to go out of your way. You'd use the locally available materials. You wouldn't have to go out of your way to have the factory for the mushroom production. Now, this mushroom production for me was a good idea, really, really good idea, because I know that in places like Barara, if you have those big hotels, or even the population in Barara, you could sell to them. That is one. You sell the excess. Another thing, we know Naki Valley being a refugee camp is life there is not very easy. And that is why we were really trying to do all this permaculture stuff in Naki Valley, because we know that the refugees, they have a small stipend which cannot last them even a week, and it is given on a monthly basis. So the rest of the 3 weeks, the refugees have to go out of their way, or maybe they have to stretch this stipend. So it means they're not eating well. So the mushroom could be a good source of food also, apart, protein, apart from the things that they grow in the shambas or the gardens. Yeah, we call them shambas in Kenya. That's Swahili, or the gardens. So this mushroom could be able to help the families with much needed nutrition and food security, and the excess could be sold. This again would empower the women, and it could also be a boost to the local economy. So when I look at some of these things that we put in place, like for bar and bath soap, the single most very expensive item that would be needed for that would be the the mold. Yeah, the mold. For baking bread, they would just make uh, we call it juakali in Kenya, locally made, you know, uh, oven. For the oil press, for you to start this one, the women would need to uh, grow like the sunflower, which takes three months to mature. Then the oil press, once it is there, that would be the single most uh, expensive thing that maybe if they can be assisted to have, it would ensure that everybody, I'm sure if they got that, everybody would, you know, do their sunflower seed along, you know, the edges of their garden so that they could not be able to buy the oil. So for peanut butter, also a machine would be needed. For juice making, it would be a simple blender. For the milk products also, we would need a machine. For mushroom, as I've said, is just the spores. So we were just trying to look at the things that you know could be easily done by the population in Naki Valley. And when I was doing development economics, we used to say that if you want to really make a difference in your life, you produce what you consume and you consume what you produce. So this one is going to close the door for your capital flight. You know, you will when you produce in your shamba what you consume, it means that what you could have gone to buy, you now don't buy. The money is kept with you, and you can use it for something else. And with that one, you'll have made a step. So I think basically those are just some of the things that we were looking at to see if they could be able to, it would be able to make a difference. Because another thing, now I'm not talking about Naki Valley, but I'm talking about my work even here in Kenya. Capital flight is a major problem. You find like in a country like Kenya, we have a few rich people. The majority are poor, very poor, and they're becoming poorer by day. You see? So you find that a few people own the factory, and that is why they are coming with all these crazy laws in Kenya. Like, are you aware in Kenya, if you share seeds and you are liable to a fine of 1,000,000 Kenya shillings? That's a lot of money. That's about 10,000 US dollars, or imprisonment, 3 years imprisonment. And I said, now, that is just madness. And that is why during my PDC, the theme of the PDC was our seeds, our heritage, because it is crazy. It means that anytime, even an old woman back in the village just wants to grow her own food, even just some small vegetables in her kitchen garden, she has to go to the agrovet to buy seeds, you know. So you find that these are laws that are being passed because maybe a politician or two, they own, the seed company. So their greed drives them, and they want to make sure that everybody, everybody's survival is tied to them. Anytime you think of doing something, it's money in their pocket, you see. So that is why I said, no, 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 no. We have to empower these women so that you can be able to survive on your own without outside sources. Or even if you're to get something outside, you know, yes, you will, but you can as well live without it. You see. So if you can grow your own food, if you can be able to get your own soup, if you can be able to get your own cooking oil, then you're good to go. Whatever little money you have, maybe you can use for school fees, you know? So for me, that is what I'm trying to think like, we need the return of the cottage industry because that is one part of history that Africa did not go through, because when Africa got colonized, we were brought all these good, nice manufactured things. I mean, we all grew up using Colgate, Palmolive, and we didn't know that you can actually make your own stuff, you see? And we had to work so hard to buy these things. You find sometimes people are farming and they sell their farm produce very cheaply to buy, I'm sorry to use the word, rubbish, or manufactured stuff with a lot of chemicals to keep them, to keep them fresh. When they have sold, they are very, very good stuff, you see? So that is what I'm fighting for. I'm fighting for women empowerment by getting the mamas to grow their own food. And out of this food, I want them to value add. Out of this food, I want them to stop post-harvest losses by knowing how they can be able to dry them, process them, so that they can keep the food stuff for a longer period of time for them to use together with their family. Thank you.
Wow. Thanks so much, Caroline. That was really in-depth. And yeah, it's a whole design. You're having close to, let's say, close to 10 designs on your table already. I'm happy about how comprehensive it's all and how much time you've taken to even go into the statistics, build up entire fully grown kind of proposals for each of those. So probably as part of the academy, those are some of the projects or some of the projects that we can see how do we have them as part of your portfolio. That way you're able to track them through and it will be of multiple or several advantages or uses. First of all, you're disseminating information, but on the other hand, you're also informing future projects and also attracting possible funders in the process. So it's really multifunctional. Over to you, Steve.
Yeah, likewise. I was just digesting all of that, Caroline. That's really, really, really interesting. And I've taken some notes as well. So I think, so also what I got from your analysis was, yeah, there's the potentials, but then there's barriers to entry. So to process milk, you need certain machinery. To dry food, and I like the fact that you identified the mushrooms as being the cheapest industry to enter into, if you like, the least barriers. You need a mud hut, you need the spores, and you need some organic matter to break down. We can start with very small micro enterprises that meet immediate needs. Oyster mushrooms are high in vitamins and nutrients that you're probably not getting from the kind of foods that you have, the carbohydrate based foods that they give you in the refugee settlements. So that really shows a way forward. And I think that's linking to what you just said, Gerald, that's also how the academy could work, or how we might be able to help each other, is we support each other to initiate the things that lead the least amount of investment, and we work together to seek resources through funding, through donors, to buy the infrastructure then, and that enables us to start those micro enterprises. And those micro enterprises, could be starting from within any community. It doesn't have to be a refugee community. Obviously, we're all, as Caroline said, we're all becoming increasingly poorer. So this model of capitalism that we now have, of sort of neoliberal markets, is, they are seeing every aspect of human activity to be a potential profit center. So you're not allowed to save seed. You have to buy my seed, or you have to buy this processed food. It's always about consuming resources from outside. So this is the really fundamental lesson in permaculture. So you can think about this, Andre, is the more that we can begin to meet our needs from the resources we can generate, we become hugely empowered. And also, we look to the things that are easiest to initiate, but also the areas of the biggest leaks. What is it that you're spending your money on all the time? Yes. I think, what is it that you're consuming? Where is your money going? Is it on fuel for your fire, for cooking? Then we need to build a Lorena stove first. Is it going on the cooking oil? Is it going on, let's be very conscious about where it goes. So Andre just raised the point about empowering women is the key. And I think this is absolutely right, because so much hinges on the actions of the women. They're responsible for processing food, cooking food, growing food, childcare, collecting fuel. There's too much pressure on there. So again, is strategically, what can we do to remove that workload? And we've already talked about how the fuel efficient stove suddenly saves so much time from just processing wood and collecting wood. And I think another point that you said, Caroline, which was so interesting, which is how especially rural Africa moved from a village economy where you meet all your needs, everything was almost a gift economy, right? So, and then suddenly colonialism came, and you're kind of forced, here's buy t-shirts, buy shoes, buy things that are manufactured elsewhere. And the only way you can do that is by getting jobs and earning money, and you're drawn into the system. So what I think is we have to engage with the system on our own terms. So, and the empowerment comes from meeting the core of our needs from local resources and doing it efficiently through good design. And this is the bit about that brings permaculture together. In the market economy capitalist system, we're almost all competing against each other for scarce resources. In permaculture, we're collaborating together to generate those resources locally. Now, you're not going to be making your own mobile phone. You're not necessarily going to be making your own shoes, or I don't know, some things are much harder to do. But again, let's think about the things that we can do. And you can repair and maintain technology and keep it working much longer than, you don't have to throw them away. these are all very key ideas about how we might do permaculture in our communities. I was, taking some. Oh, there's a comment there. Let me just. I want to keep on top of the chat as well, because. Okay. Yes. Right. So yeah, it becomes like a merry-go-round. So again, your point you said, Andre, and I put this in the notes as well, is so you said you need to start this process with some training. So in terms of your permaculture design for your community, you've identified that training is your start point. Okay, how are we going to make that happen? You've got your core group. So let's think about how that process might unfold. And you can and then begin to have those conversations where we start to broaden out, to pick up on the points that Caroline's making. But the coming together of people has to start is the first start. Look, I want to show just a few pictures. I'm kind of waiting for Stella, but she's on a taxi on the way here, so we're not quite halfway, are we? I'll just maybe. I wanted just to put a bit more material in there. I've been, just to say, whilst this is the web page I'm writing currently, called Projects in Development, and there's currently 5. There's one which I'm working on locally here in Wales. There's what I'm hearing from Permo Africa, from the Homa Bay team in Kenya. Their vision is to create a conversation around permaculture between all 5,000 villages in Homa Bay County. That's incredibly exciting and quite ambitious. They have been doing the same PDC as us in the same time. They're also on week 23, and there's 40 of them, and they're sitting in a physical classroom. And each day they've done some practicals, they've had a lunch, and they've had some theory. So they've built a strong sense of team. So, Andre, I'm going to really encourage you to look at the work of Permo Africa and of what Paul Agola has done there. And he's developed a demonstration and training hub, and then is inviting people to come in there to have the training. And obviously, in the process of developing the hub, that's the first layer of training that you're doing. So we can help you see a physical model of a process that Paul's been going through. He started training with us in 2016 and 2017. And his Permo Africa vision started around then. So he's about 6 years in front of you. So you can think, well, where do you want to be? Use your vision to think about where you're going to be in 5 or 6 years. So we'll come back and we can look at Permo Africa, but that's going to be, and that is the nearest demonstration and training center to Kakuma. It might probably be half a day on a bus to get there. It's quite a way, but it's reachable. So there's a potential. So understand is what you're trying to initiate in Kakuma. You're not the first. Other people have done these things in motion, set these things in motion, and some people are, can show you examples and help you see the way forward for the journey that you're now on. So 6 years into that, and Paul's now saying, how can we network with all the other villages in Homa Bay County? Can we create a shift at a local level where actually the majority of people are now thinking about permaculture and thinking in a parallel, in a complementary way? So imagine if we could do that within the community of Kakuma over the next 5 years. Imagine the momentum that could be created, or in Nativali, or the networks that we could create between pioneer groups, be it from the refugee, the host community, from the rural communities. It doesn't really matter. But that's what they're doing in Homer Bay. And I'm trying to reflect that and collect that onto this website so that if anyone's interested, they can look at this in one place. Project 3 is the Rwandan Women's Permaculture Network. And alongside the momentum that there is in Eastern Uganda, that there is in each, in Permo Africa, and etc. We've also worked with a pioneer group down in the south of Rwanda, in Gisagara district, and we've worked quite closely with them over the last 3 years, and they've created a demonstration and education hub within a high school. And there's also other breakaway community garden projects now happening, sort of inspired by that. And Stella has just literally spent the last week traveling around in Uganda and in Rwanda, visiting some of these projects. So I'm going to share some slides, some photographs from her with you in the second half of this lecture. So we can begin the second half thinking about seeing some examples, very specific examples of what's been going on currently in Rwanda this week. They're hot off the press. Project 4 is, and so I think to take notes for, is I'm suggesting that we as a group apply to UNHCR and see if we can get some money to help develop our ideas. If we don't ask, we won't get it. And if we do ask, we still might not get it. But it's worth a try. And I think that between what we're saying, there's enough overlap between us to sort of put together an outline initial bid to that. If we were successful, it's not loads of money, it's not going to make us rich, but it's going to be a seed that we could start off something perhaps in 2 or 3 different places, and we could all be working together. So that would be working through you, Andre, and other people in Kakuma who build a group. We'd like to see a group form in Nachivali, and there's people talking to us about that. And that could be something to focus our attention on, but in the way that we're going to do it anyway, right? We don't need permission to do it, but if somebody is going to help us find those resources, then that would be great. Okay. That's great, Caroline. Yes. Okay, good. So I'm talking about collaboration, sharing visions, and if we can communicate our visions, we can then ask for help. If they don't say yes, then fine, we carry on. But if they do, there are resources out there to help us. So we need to go for that. So here you can see I've actually started noting down some of the comments that you've been making. Andrew's comment that in Kakuma, people need first training about permaculture. And then Caroline's comments about micro enterprise. So I love the idea of micro enterprises. And I think you're so right, Caroline. Your observation is you went from kind of village economies to, colonial sort of a commodity economy. And you've missed out the developmental stages because you never had your own small business economy. And I think that's something, and I also think the other thing that you missed out on was gardening, and the mandala gardens, the raised beds, the intensive gardens, that's all new. I don't see that around in the villages. I think that's, people have field of maize or they graze the cattle. So these small intensive food gardens, I think, is a fantastic innovation. And now you think about it is, well, there's a lot of available space there in to be cultivated. So there we go. That's that project 4 in development, and you can see how that brings us all together. And then project 5, I've just put in the list but we're also have been talking to a group in Kumi in eastern Uganda around a hospital there that has 500 hectares of land that's quite degraded, and we're talking about working with them, and so that's close to where Deborah and Simon are. So these are the things that we're currently thinking about, and I'm interested to see how we might want to use let's build on these ideas, right? And I think I'm going to focus on the because it's the end of June is when we have to put in an outline expression of interest into the UNHCR thing. So all of the comments that we've had so far today about that have been very useful, and I'm trying to capture those. Okay, we're coming up to our halfway point. So what I'm going to do is let's have a little pause. I welcome comments from anyone. A summary or anything from Gerald, of course, is always welcome. And anyone else who had just a comment or anything that you'd like us to cover in part 2. I'm going to start off by showing some of these slides from Rwanda. I thought that would be a good little inspiration. Yeah, okay. Anyone? Simon, thank you.
On our micro projects. Yes. Now here, to the back of my knowledge, basically, not only to help people in refugee camps, but also to our communities. The micro projects of majorly the horticultural crop production is basically so vital in a community whereby some of those crops are so nutritious to our body as well as to our health, whereby we, like me, I've ever been a farmer of cabbages, onions, tomatoes, and skuma wiki, which is so delicious to us. And at my locality where I have, basically, I fed people for quite a long period of time during that corona session when there was an outbreak of corona. So we could not be in a position to move from Kumi here or from Ngora here to Mbale to get onions, cabbages, and tomatoes. But by that time, I had put just a small plot of the horticultural gardens, and I really managed to help people to sustain the needs that they wanted from those crops, and they were really so happy and pleasant with the work that I was doing, and some of them really coped up with the mode of farming that I have adopted for the locality. That's why I'm saying basically to micro project, the first one that would reach onto Kakuma, where my friend Andrew is basically the horticultural production, whereby their resources are not so highly expensive for him to begin the production as compared to mushroom, as my sister Caroline talked of, but that one is a bit expensive, whereby to get spawn itself is a problem. But when you go to production of the horticultural crops into our communities, that one is a bit cheaper, where one can go in for these ready tomatoes, and he can bring and squeeze the seeds from that ready tomatoes already, and then he puts into a nursery bed and begins his journey there of production of the tomatoes, as compared to that one that needs again you to impact a lot of funds in it, whereby the situation itself in a camp is not so favorable. It is not so favorable, and there it will save the little fund has at hand at that time will help him to run those other activities for easy life. And then the other one of all the aspect of bringing the farmer field schools, like for us here, the permaculture trainees or trainers, we are to set a goal which says we really need to get a permaculture training center per village or per group in the localities that we are, such that we impact that knowledge to the people, and then they get change and begin the practicing the aspect of permaculture as a principle, as a type of agriculture that will help them to transform their lives from the aspect of using those inorganic fertilizers and and chemicals that will spoil their health. It is not really good. So by creating those permafield school permaculture centers will really bring them knowledge whereby they can be in position to get the idea of making the compost manure, how they can maintain their soil, how they can make their medicinal pesticides, how they can use them, and the knowledge will flow onto them. And then the poverty line that people are crying each and every time, each and every day, will no longer be there, because the production is at its peak, where everybody now can afford to put cabbage on fire, to put sukuma wiki on fire, to get onions, which onions are so vital for our health. Where you get cabbage. Cabbage is a medicinal plant for some ulcers. You can imagine that, but people are green about it. Cabbage goes and expels the gases that have accumulated in your stomach, and then you begin excreting it from your arm, and then you will be relieved from those gases. So and they are like, look at onions. Onions is a repellent, where those pests cannot even reach, where there is that smell. The smell of onions itself can interfere that pest from reaching onto that crop. And then the other one is on the production of these fruit crops, like the avocados, the onions, the oranges, the jackfruits, the what? Those ones are also so vital. Those ones are also so vital for our health. Look at the production of oil, avocado oil. Avocado oil is simple to make, and it is cheaper once you have attained at least 1 or 2 trees of avocado. And there you will be having your avocado hair relaxer for those who are palming their hairs and so forth and so forth. And even avocado itself is so nutritious that it helps in the making of your skin, turning your skin. That is the health side now. That and even their leaves are so good. You can use as tea leaves, as compared to those other chemicals that we are consuming from factories. Though they are saying change has brought some modernization to the world that was brought by the colonialists to us, but yet they are harming us indirectly. So to me, my focus is to see the aspect of preventing those other toxins from entering into our bodies, into our soils, into the rest of the people and the soil. And when we come to the maintenance of when we come to the aspect of maintaining the health, to maintain the health of the soil, really it is so sad that when you reach into a community and you find a lot of poison bags, poison materials, poison bottles and papers are thrown on top of our soil. They are not so good. They affect the drainage system of our soil, and it will not allow the water itself to penetrate into the soil, and then the soil will biodegrade, and it will lose value. No more fertility that we can attain from such kind of a soil which is covered with such kind of materials and chemicals. But it is our role as the permaculture trainees or trainers to go and spread the worst bit of those polythene bags and polythene bottles and plastic bottles that people are throwing onto the soil. That one will affect the productivity of our food, which food is so vital for our lives, and even the economy itself will not be getting what it is required to get as a result of such kind of factors that will affect the soil life. And then the other one is on top of the animals. The residues or the waste products that we obtain from those horticultural crops can be used for feeding our animals. Look at the cabbage leaves. I used for feeding these goats. I used for feeding these rabbits. And the rabbits feed on them, and they are converted. They bring the droppings, which droppings are so vital for the soil. They add the fertility into our soil. So the system there is incorporated together rather than segregated. They are incorporated. So once you bring in that aspect of horticultural production, rabbits will benefit, goats will benefit, cows will benefit. Who will give us the manure? Which manure is so important to our soil? And then production will be a continuous process. Once production has become a continuous process, no more crying of poverty, no more crying of lack of food, no more crying of inadequate funds. And this one must be taken to our mothers. As Caroline said, women should be empowered into this production system of food. Not only women, to me, I look into an aspect whereby we need to bring up this youth. This younger generation here should be introduced into the system of permaculture such that they will be in position to make their own money, make their own food, make their own pesticides, make their own ways of getting money rather than being dependent to the parents. Yes, it is a role of a parent to do that, but at least they should be taught some knowledge and skill on how to make that food production. Okay, that is what I wanted to talk about. And on the issue of butter, butter is the best nutritious oil of all oils that I have ever used in my life. Butter is the best, and it comes from the milk. It comes from the milk. So people should learn how to make that butter. People should learn how to make it. Though most of us don't have the nankan, the cows for milk production, but necessarily it is good for us to use the butter as one of the best oil for our health. Butter, peanuts, and the sunflower oil also is better because the process of it is making is better than the one that is crude from the factory, because I don't know the chemicals they used for it is production. I rather depend on and then there is the other one that comes from is it coconut what tree? Yeah. That comes from the coconut tree, and it is referred to as, so we know it as a akungurutu. That akungurutu there, it is the best. It is produced from a tree called is it coconut? Yeah. It is a coconut tree. That coconut tree, the seeds of the coconut tree brings a very good cooking oil. That one is locally made. It is locally made, and it has changed the lives of some people, those who are producing that oil from the coconuts. It is really so nice to see such kind of a person. Yes. Thank you.
That's great. So very useful thoughts there, Simon. Great. Should we have a short... Deborah, please. We welcome your contribution.
Hi, everyone. I wanted also to contribute on the side when we look at permaculture here in Teso. I look at agribusiness in permaculture also, where people from the refugee camps can be trained on permaculture approaches so that they can get income out of those products. Like Carolyn talked of making soap, but I didn't heard her saying they are generating income out of it. First of all, in AINI, that is African Agribusiness Incubators Network, I learned about agripreneurship, the quality and the quantity of the commodity, how they pack, how they prepare locally so that those products can be sold and get money out of those products. Like tomatoes, when we talk about horticulture in permaculture, we are looking at the type of the soils in those refugees or in our communities. What type of soils do we have? And how can we impact? How can we add fertility to that soil? How can we educate the community? How can we educate those our people in the refugee camps how to come up with the good soil so that they can come up with a good quality of good production of horticulture production. That's what I'd also wanted to contribute on the side of agribusiness and agripreneurship. Maybe I've never heard that word in permaculture, but I wanted also to add on that word agribusiness. When we started using agribusiness, we started looking at their projects. Like some groups, of course, we came up with 60 groups in Ngora district, where we looked at their project, what they want to do. So some of them went with poultry, some of them wanted horticulture, some wanted bull fattening, some of them wanted artificial insemination. So they were trained according to their as we empower women, we empower our communities, we empower children around school. Because in Eastern Uganda, we have a plan to come up with the training centers, even in schools. Some schools, right now, we are busy making our plans to reach some of the schools to teach them about permaculture. But first of all, we first look at the need of the school. What do they need? What type of what type of crops and what type of plants do they need to carry in their schools, in their communities, so that can attract income, can attract money, can also help them in their health to change their diet. That's what I also wanted to contribute on the side of permaculture about the business. Also wanted to add on how to make soap. Really, I have no knowledge on how to make soap, but as a leader, we were to train. Somebody told me that when you are doing horticulture, the resources are available around your farms. Those materials, you use locally available materials. First of all, some people who are making soap, they told me that you first get those things from your farms, but I've not confirmed. Maybe I will confirm from my sister Caroline how to make soap. That's what I also wanted to contribute. Thank you so much for this time, for listening.
Wow. Thank you, Caroline. It's always a pleasure hearing, your thoughts and everyone's thoughts. It's really interactive. Yes, are these fresh hands, Caroline and then Simon? Are they
It's a
new?
fresh one.
Yes,
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Fresh one.
Okay, let's start with Caroline because I think she's going to give some feedback to
Deborah.
Deborah, and then I will come to you, Simon, please.
Oh, okay.
Okay, please. Thank you.
Deborah, can you imagine just eating your own butter or cheese? You've milked your cow and you have cheese in your house, and can you imagine how satisfying that is? But that is by the way. Deborah, you talked about that I did not really say so much about, making soap as a business. But okay, I agree. It was implied. I did not come out very strongly on, selling it, but I'm trying to imagine, like in your village, if you made very good quality soap, I don't think, and you sold it maybe some 100 or 200 shillings cheaper, I do not think people will go for the other soap. They will buy from you. And that money, the money that is going out to Kampala, to those big factory owners, will all, end up in Deborah's house. I think that can be very nice. Now, another thing, I really do not like the term agribusiness, because in Kenya here, agribusiness agribusiness is associated with large tracts of monoculture. You know, yeah, that is what most people refer to as agribusiness here in Kenya. But with the permaculture, it's a little bit different in that you produce what you consume, and the excess can be sold, or the excess can be processed for future use or for sale. So, agribusiness, to me, in my mind, I think of very big farms, monoculture, a lot of production, processing and selling. But in permaculture, I think maybe it's a little bit different. I'm trying to think again. What else did Deborah talk about? The soap, yes. Um, the soap, what we learned how to make in Naki Valley, we used chemicals actually. But there are some groups here in Kenya where they are making organic soap. But if you're using oil as a base, if we have, like, if you can grow your sunflower, you can grow your avocados. So the oil that you can use as a base for the soap will be locally, produced. And basically, that is why we were talking about growing all these things like sunflower. You can use the oil for cooking. Some you can use to make your own soap. So that is it. And then, Deborah, another thing, when you're talking about organic soap, if you can grow your own neem tree, if you can grow your own aloe vera, those are just some of the additives that you can put in your soap. Because when you go to the supermarket, just pick a bar soap, bathing soap, that has got neem, has got aloe vera, has got avocado oil, coconut oil. The price is terribly costly, and these are things that you can locally grow just in your backyard, and when you're producing your soap, you can take and mix into your soap, and you have your organic bath soap, which in Kampala would cost an arm and a leg. And here is Deborah producing it, in her village and using it. And when she goes to Kampala, everybody wonders how smooth her skin is. They think she must be very rich. She's buying a lot of, expensive things to use on herself. But those are your locally produced items that you're using to make, you're using to meet your needs. Thank you.
Yeah, I have something to share.
Okay, Simon, please go on. Thank you, Caroline.
Yes, now I was to back on what my mentor was talking of agribusiness. You see, agribusiness aspect of agriculture itself is very wide. The word agri itself is all about production. And then the other aspect of business is all about the marketing. So when you combine that word, agribusiness is all about the marketing of the agricultural products. But now it brings back my mind to ask a question that when you are to begin marketing your agricultural products, what is the quantity and the quality that you are producing so that you begin marketing it out? There is producing something which is basically for home consumption, and then there is producing something for beyond home consumption. There you introduce the aspect of the agri business, and there you be suiting different communities beyond your local community. There agribusiness aspect will come in. And then when you are to talk of business itself, know where your customers are, though they are coming to your home or to your farm where you are producing. Know where they are potential consumers of your products, because most of the agricultural products that we are producing as the permaculturists are perishable. They are perishable. Most of them are perishable. Look at tomatoes. We don't have sources that can keep tomatoes for more than a week. So we target at least for a small production for the community of people to consume. Large production goes for marketing. And with the marketing aspect, the other time we talked of the the factors of production, where you identify those factors of production, and then the marketing process of demand and supply that will come in to your agribusiness aspect. When demand is there, produce bulk. When there is no demand, produce little that you can consume. And then you see that agribusiness aspect of it can suit in, and then you will outcompete for the market. When you get those who have monopolized the market economy, you, the beginner, who will bring yours at the time that the monopolist of the market have captured the market itself, your produce itself will be wasted, or it will be sold cheaply at a lower price. That will not help you to recover the resources that you use in the production of it. And then again, I go back to the other aspect of value addition. Value addition. How have you added value onto your product? Now, I'm producing tomatoes. I want to sell it to Kenya. In 2-3 days, I have to produce what I call tomato sauce, which is already packed, sealed, and preserved, such that by the time it reaches to Kenya, it should reach there when it is still fresh. It should not be something that has gone bad. So the aspect of agribusiness itself is so wide. To me, to the best of my knowledge, or to my view, I look at into the aspect whereby we are to fight against our communities on food production. And little, when you want soap, you can say, yes, I need soap. Exchange, barter trade, exchange. Bring me money, I give you sukuma week of 1,000, 3,000, 4,000, I get soap. Life goes on, and health continues growing. Agribusiness itself, it's the marketing of the agricultural products. Thank you.
Yeah, Andre, I just want to comment one thing though to Simon is.
Yeah.
Okay, please.
What I would like to share about women, to empower women. So all things are well. All ideas are well. And what I know about permaculture is not only to cultivate gardens, but permaculture have more than 5 projects who are inside permaculture. Even poultry project, business are inside, so are many. So what I can say about idea from Madam, the one who are talking here, to empower women, it is very important first, because there are different, like I can say here in Kakuma, there is different nationalities, different women. There are even widows who are in Kakuma. They didn't even learn. They don't have jobs. But if they will be trained, and then they will be starting cultivating some gardens, so that maybe they can sell them the vegetables. They can get the amount of money. Maybe they can be self-resilient. So to empower women is very important for our communities. So that's what I would like to add about the women. So women first, youth, we are all projects are well. We should focus on women, youth, to empower them. But on my side, I agree with Madam Carol. I don't remember the name, but that is the point.
Wow, these are really interesting, exchanges and then conversations. It's really interesting. And we as facilitators, I think we feel the dynamics, we feel the inertia, I'll call it, in the group, and we are really excited from our end. Let's keep the conversations going, but then in the meantime, I think let's take a quick break and then be back at, let's do 7 minutes. So we'll be back at 40 past the hour or 20 to the top of the hour. Steve, is that okay? Is that okay with everyone? Yes.
That's great. Yeah.
That one is okay. That one.
It will be 1840 here, and it will be 2040 East African time. All right. See you in 7 minutes. Welcome back, everyone. I hope everyone is back on.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. You are welcome too.
Okay. Let's proceed. Let's proceed. Back to you, Steve.
Oh, thank you. Oh, okay. Oh, look, I made these graphics earlier. They didn't display before. I was just playing around with this Zoom tool and realizing there's so many different things I can do with it. And also, I can, there we go. We can get off that now. Oh. There we go. So yeah, I'm only learning just now that there's so many clever things that you can incorporate into the tools in Zoom, and I've also found out that there's an AI tool that will listen to our meeting and then summarize it and then give us the notes afterwards. So I'm not sure. I think I'm running that one as well. So it's all it's all learning for me, and it's all very interesting. So anyway, if I can just see how to get out of this. So yeah, do use the chat as well. I think it's good if you can record your own responses to things, and it makes it a little bit more two-way, the discussion. So I want to say I'm very happy to have much more contributions from each one of you. By this time on a course, after all these weeks, I'm very tired of hearing my own voice, and I want to, hear much more back from you. So I'm going to put up an image now, and we can perhaps together we can discuss what we think we're seeing. Let's see the different aspects of this. And I was hoping Stella would be back for this time, but never mind. So here's our Academy website, and here's a post that I'm just working on at the moment called Community Growing Rwanda. And this is where Stella has just been meeting with Barnaby, who Gerald and I met just this time last year, a bit over a year ago. And since this year, in the 6 months, they have started this garden here. So this is 6 months old only, and let's just discuss a little bit what we're seeing is a distance photo of a community garden. I'm noticing there's some poles and nets around the edges. I'm not quite sure what function that is doing, what these things are. And around here, there's a structure there. We're seeing raised beds, and it looks like the edges of the beds are some material that they've had locally available, and they've created a design. I don't know exactly the thought process that went into this, but we can speculate. But look how it's visually impactful. It's you see that and you think, oh, there's something going on there. So as a demonstration center, it instantly has a visual impact. They've chosen to build these beds out of materials that they have available. And he told me that he's made the beds, they're about 1.2 meters across. So you can stand on the path and reach into the bed without having to stand on it. I'd like to hear people contributions really to see what people can see. I can imagine they've removed the topsoil from the paths and they've put that onto the beds. So we've now got twice the depth of topsoil here. And we've got companion plants, I don't know what they are, growing along the edges, plants that bring in pollinating insects, plants that help create habitat for the predators of potential pests. They've created beds of different shapes and sizes. We've got a big circular bed over here. We've got some straight beds. I'm seeing banana tree over there. And there's other climbers, sunflowers along the edge. Caroline, you'll be happy to see those. So look how we've got a diversity. We've got a line of sunflowers along this side that could be producing, again, sunflowers feed bees, feed pollinating insects, produce a lot of biomass, and then produce a seed, which has a very high value as a food. Okay, thank you, Andrew. You have to go. Thank you for your being here. And look how little room, how little space it takes up in the garden. It's adding a layer of productivity. We've got these lovely edges, and in this area here, I'm not quite sure what we're seeing here. It looks like something different. We've got pumpkins going everywhere. These look like papayas, more sunflowers. We've got a wonderful diversity. I think one of the key point that's happened in the side chat in just the last conversation was around agribusiness, and we like the idea, value addition, processing, creating goods that can meet our own needs and local needs. And then the key question came in also about scale, because as soon as we want to do one kind of business at a bigger scale, we find ourselves doing monoculture again. And you can't do monoculture and be organic. Organic systems need diversity. So what we're seeing in this picture is a wonderful mix of different types and shapes of plants growing with different colors and shapes and textures, growing on different time scales in different niches. And they stack together to create a diverse garden. Let's have a look. So Stella has gone there last week to observe, to see what's going on there, but also to do some testing. We want some measurements. We want some data. What is the quality of the plants that they're producing there? We're not what are they producing? How much? What different varieties? How are they doing it? But also, what's the quality of the product? So this has been a key question. So we're seeing here looks like a banana guild. Help me, tell me what other plants you see growing. We've got a well mulched bed. I see various different things becoming established. That's a wonderful picture because we're seeing so much diversity in one small space. We've got short-term annual plants. We've got our long-term banana plant. We've got other things behind there. Another nice view of the garden, close to a lake. Again, look at another lovely diversity of support plants. The crops are developing in the bed. We've got different things behind there. Different heights. Think about so much diversity in that one picture. That's a really good template for a permaculture garden. Now look, and one of the things that Stella is doing is picking some of the crops, and she's going to then test them to find the quality, the nutrient density. And I've talked before about using our refractometer to test the sap of the plant and to see what its Brix value is. And to remind us that Sector 39, we're part of the Griffin network, Growing Real Food for Nutrition. And what they are trying to do is to collect the data about the quality of the food that we're producing. The learning is that the more we produce food in forest garden systems, in perennial systems, without any chemicals, without any pesticides, with organic methods, the quality of the food is higher. And the higher the quality, the healthier the plant, the healthier the soil, the healthier the plant. The healthier the plant, the more it can resist pest attack. A healthy soil has a really well established mycelial net within it, which can access and channel water from much further away and deeper. Healthy soils that have not been dug, that have used organic processes, are more drought resistant. Healthy soils give us a higher quality resulting plant. I've seen some lovely leeks, and it looks like carrots and marigolds. It's just wonderful. I think it's impossible to see this garden and not be inspired. Caroline, you're just arriving. We're just sharing these pictures that Stella has taken this week on her visit to Rwanda. At this beautiful community garden with its raised beds, interesting shapes, mixing together different plants, diversity of yields, diversity of habitats, different timelines. So think about how we could integrate into, Caroline, there's our sunflowers along the edge. Like you said, a line along the edge of the garden. It doesn't take up any space, but then we've got a high value yield there. We can integrate tall, big plants, give a bit of shade and help interact with our annual beds. And look how beautifully mulched and protected they are. So yeah, here we go. So a lovely diversity mixing together of plants. And something that Stella reported from the field work in Rwanda was many of the small farmers had said they always used to just produce one thing or in a field of one crop. And now mixing things together was a totally new idea for them. And Stella said in some places they had maybe 10 different things growing together. Yes. So she's collecting these, and there's a leek coming. And what are these? Are they tomatoes? No, I can't quite tell. We have beans, pumpkin, salad, there's cabbage. They look really healthy. There's the carrot. Yeah, there we go. So, and think how much a garden like this can inspire. Not just that we have these wonderful yields. That's exactly right, Caroline. The permaculture abundance from variety, and what Stella's done is taken some of these crops, and we've tested them. So here's our refractometer. Here's Barnaby, and we've got these sap pliers to squeeze up the juice. We put the juice onto the screen of the refractometer and look through the eyepiece, and it gives us a value. from 0 to 30. It tells us how much nutrient, how much sugar and other minerals and vitamins are in the sap of the plant. And the healthier the soil, the more nutrients that is in the food, and the more that plant can resist pest attack. So collecting data like this adds another yield to the system and gives us more value. I've added into this post a little video about the nutrient cycle, the nitrogen cycle. Sorry, I thought this was actually really good, and maybe let's have a look at this to see if this works over Zoom. Just to look at this video. It's only 4 minutes.
Most species in this family, including these three, are known as nitrogen fixers. They increase.
It starts with looking at legumes. There's nitrogen fixing plants like peas and beans, but there's actually very many. So this is a very interesting little short video.
Peas, beans, and clover are among the 18,000 species in the pea family. Most species in this family, including these three, are known as nitrogen fixers. They increase the level of nitrogen in the soil, which plants need to produce protein so they can grow, and chlorophyll so they can photosynthesize. One way to use this in the garden is to interplant nitrogen fixers with other plants that need a lot of nitrogen. Or you could plant a nitrogen-fixing cover crop like clover for fertile soil next year. Okay, this can be useful, but doesn't nitrogen fertilizer do the same thing but more conveniently? Why bother with this nitrogen fixation thing? Understanding this requires us to understand how nitrogen fixation works, which in turn requires us to understand the broader nitrogen cycle. So let's start with the big picture. Nitrogen makes up 78% of the Earth's atmosphere by volume. But most of this nitrogen takes the form of two nitrogen atoms strongly bonded together, which isn't very reactive and is useless to plants. For it to become plant available, we need the help of bacteria. Various species of bacteria eat atmospheric nitrogen and poop out ammonium. This gets eaten by other kinds of bacteria, which poop out nitrite, which gets eaten by yet another kind of bacteria, which poops out nitrate. All of these forms of nitrogen are available for plants, especially nitrate, which is the easiest for plants to use. Plants can take this up directly if it is near their roots, but they most often rely on strands of fungi that attach to their roots and bring nutrients to them in exchange for the sugars and carbohydrates the plant roots exude. Dead plant material is also rich in nitrogen and gets brought down with the help of worms, whose poop is a delicacy among nitrifying bacteria. Some of the ways nitrogen exits the soil is when the crop is harvested, when water carries it away, or when it becomes gaseous and returns to the atmosphere. Or if the soil lacks oxygen, different anaerobic bacteria grow, which convert nitrates back into atmospheric nitrogen. Notice that these things only happen with loose nitrogen in the soil, not with nitrogen inside organisms. Okay, so we know that the nitrogen cycle depends heavily on life in the soil. Without them, the plants would be quite sad. But you may have noticed, if the fixation process is done by bacteria, where do nitrogen-fixing plants fit into this? Believe it or not, nitrogen-fixing plants don't fix nitrogen. Rather, they create habitat for the bacteria that do. The roots of this clover plant have little nodules that house huge amounts of nitrogen-fixing bacteria. The ammonium that these bacteria create slowly releases into the soil for neighboring plants and microorganisms to use. When the plant dies, the bacteria disperse into the soil, resulting in an abundance of bacterial allies for future plants' nitrogen needs. You know how earlier I said that water can carry soil nitrogen away? This nitrogen ends up in rivers, which can disrupt the ecosystem by enabling algae to dominate. But remember, this only happens to loose nitrogen in the soil, and not to nitrogen embedded in organisms. And fertilizer adds pure nitrogen without the organisms. So when it rains, huge amounts of it run off and pollute the water. Loose nitrogen molecules are also much more prone to volatilization, releasing huge amounts of nitrous oxide, a potent greenhouse gas, into the atmosphere. But that's not all. Such quantities of pure nitrogen irritate earthworms, which end up dying or leaving. It disrupts the helpful fungus on plant roots and changes the soil pH, making it inhospitable to bacteria. In short, it kills the soil. When the nitrogen all gets used up or washes away, the organisms aren't there to help the plants get more, so now you have to add more fertilizer, which worsens the problem. And these organisms did much more than just supply nitrogen. The root fungi also brought up important minerals for the plants. And now that they're gone, mineral fertilizer must also be used. Instead of working with this self-sustaining web of organisms freely sharing nutrients, we have to spend more money to add loads of fertilizer to dead soil, poisoning the water and contributing to climate change. Considering the inability of dead soil to supply plants with nutrients, it's no wonder that throughout the last century, vegetables have been steadily declining in nutritional value. Healthy food requires healthy soil. So if the soil around you is rich and alive, try to keep it that way. But if, like most of us, the soil around you is dead or dying, nitrogen fixers can help to add a little more life so that someday our tiny allies under our feet will come back.
There we go. I hope that came over clearly. I thought that was such a great summary of the processes that we're talking about, and also really made the point about the quality of the food that's growing in the soil, about if the life isn't there, then the nutrients don't arrive in the food. So so we've just seen there an example of a community garden. We've seen lots of diversity, and we thought about perhaps all those different interactions that might be going on around that garden across the community, and with all those different people who are involved in it. And then we're seeing all these different outputs, and then beginning to understand the value of those outputs, and realizing is in the process we're building a really fertile soil, and we're building the environments in which our plants and the whole system becomes much more resilient. So I think that's a lovely summary to help us really focus on that's what we're trying to create, that's what we're trying to achieve. And yeah, there we go. And I was waiting to do that just because I know Stella would have a lot to say about her first-hand experiences of that. But I was also reminded is that there's so much that we can learn by visiting each other's plots and seeing or hearing the stories of the work that we're doing. It isn't all horticulture based, but it begins with horticulture. And we were reminded there that and horticulture begins with a healthy soil, with a healthy soil microbiome. Yeah, great. Gosh. Yeah. So let's have a few final go rounds really, and I'm going to ask you the question is, how shall we use what are we going to do next week? How can we use our remaining time, and what can we each do to prepare for the next week's session, to think how we can get the most out of it? I'm always putting together some notes and ideas for the next session, and what I've been thinking about is this idea of this project development thing, and trying to focus on putting together this UNHCR bid. So I don't know, Gerald, what do you think? Over to you for a moment. But how do we tie this together? We had a wonderful discussion this week. I feel a bit more clear in my mind about where we're going next. But yeah, happy to hear some thoughts. How are we going to make use of our remaining time?
Thanks, Steve. Yeah, that session was really good. The video was really, really clear. Very good materials and, basic and easy to understand. Yeah, so today's session has built a lot of momentum, which I think we can capitalize on to build next week's session also. We could look at things like enterprise development, but also being the last session, we could also look at a clear discussion on on what we would call ordinarily things like work plans or plans of action. What next? We've covered the 24 sessions. What comes next, especially from our dear participants? Yes, even from our end, but more so from the participants point of view, what comes next, we look at things like enterprise development stages. It will also be good, and also look at maybe running through the proposal format, using the current proposal we have at hand, the UNHCR proposal request. Okay, yes, before we switch back to Steve, Simon, oh, Caroline, we missed you. It seems you had been kicked out. But I'll do a recap. Yes, Simon.
Yes. To me, according to me, I should first of all begin by appreciating Stella for the effort that she has taken in order to bring for us such a wonderful community garden. It is really so nice, but it comes back to us, the learners. What are you going to do next after the session? That is the question I'm asking the learners for. And then the other one is, the next session, I think it should continue the usual time. As you were suggesting, it should continue with the usual time. And then I was with the view that, are we ending it minus the practical bit of medicinal making? You know, there are some medicinal pesticides that people can interchange from various places according to the way they. So it is my request that at least let a session for the practical part of medicinal plant or medicinal pesticide making be put, such that what I know should be transferred to Deborah, should be taken into Caroline, it should be taken to Andrew. What Andrew knows gives back to me also, as well as to the whole entire permaculture class. To the whole entire permaculture class. And when we are to talk of what next on the project or the proposal aspect of people to submit, really that one also, it needs us to make it, because it is another way of identifying the potential of some groups or the potential of some communities that they cannot, that they can produce, that they cannot produce, and at what time will they produce, and where can they sell it to? That is it. That is what I am thinking. And the other one is on the handout of what we have been learning, or since from session 1 to the last session. Now we have gotten our account of communication on WhatsApp. I believe that there could be the simplest venue where we can get the outlet or the pamphlet that we have been using for our learning, and it will enable some people who are not literate of the computer skills and knowledge to get it there. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. That is what I thought I could contribute.
Thank you, Simon. Yeah, very good. Stella just
Sorry,
arrived.
I hadn't realized I was on mute.
Okay.
Steve, it seems your broadband has dropped. Thanks, Simon, and thanks, Deborah. Caroline. Oh, welcome, Stella. Maybe Steve, over to you. Unless Stella is going to give us a debrief. Everyone has been thanking you for the work you've been doing in the past weeks. And the beautiful images and all that. Over to you, Steve.
Yeah, thank you, Gerald. We just had a look at your photos, some of your photos from the webpage, Stella, and everyone's very impressed. Just share a few thoughts about your impressions from Rwanda, and what did you think you learned from the trip, from what you saw? Sorry if we're putting you on the spot. You just arrived, but we were just talking about what you were doing. So we'd love to just catch a few.
Sorry, you're breaking. I can't hear you well. What did you say?
We'd like to hear from you about your trip.
Thanks, everyone. Good evening. Sorry, I logged late. About the Rwandan trip, it was really so interesting having a trip to check on the activities that had happened there a year after. After the visit of Steve and Gerald, I went to Save School, and then I also managed to go to some villages around. I had an interaction with students, their teachers, and then we moved around to their gardens. Actually, I got them when they had just planted some garden like 3 days behind, and they had planted amaranth, and then they had also done a few improvements on one of the gardens within the school compound. And I had a chat with a teacher about their project at school, and he told me they started this after Ross trained them. Okay, they used to have a food project at school, but it wasn't all that effective because they didn't know what to do. But after the training, after the permaculture training, they got knowledge and they got good ideas on what to do. They realized that they had actually wasted much of their land because some parts of the school compound were already transformed to gardens. And then there were gardens behind the school compound. And then we also had a chance to see where these people collect water. They have dug a pit where they have put black polythene coverers, and when it has rained, all the water that is from school, first of all, to the tanks. That was those tanks were connected by Sector 39, and then when those tanks are full of course, not all the classes will go to those tanks. Some classes would go down, would pour that water, which ideally would have become a waste. But out of the knowledge they got, they created a channel that allows that water to go down, that is outside the school compound, and the water is collected. And that is the water they use during dry season. I remember sending photos. I asked the teacher how best they help themselves in case the students are not around. He told me the project has helped them in a way that their parents who cannot afford to pay school fees of their children, But because of the knowledge they got, they realized these parents would contribute in one way or the other. So if your child is at school and is not able to pay school fees, the best they can tell you to do is come out more Rwandan shillings, meaning they would tell you to come out once a week to do some work within the school compound. And that is around those gardens, maybe watering, maybe planting or weeding, just for a week, and that would count for 1,000. So meaning a parent would ideally sacrifice a day in a week, that is 4 days, maybe in a month, or the person would spread it along the term to make sure that they pay the fees of their children. And they have this is yielding results. So it still brings us back to cooperation. How do we integrate whatever we have around us to make sure that we get better results without leaving someone behind? So they thought of this, which I think was a great idea. And then they also said the project has helped them in a way that they are able now to feed their children, their students at school, and then teachers as well get meals at school now. Not just an ordinary meal, but a meal that anyone would desire because they have green vegetables in plenty. They had amaranth, they had cabbages, they had a lot of onions, they had avocado, they had beans, they had maize also in the garden. So, it's not just something small, and they're not in small quantity. It's really large quantity, you know, and they're managing it. And then they are not doing anything to do with so on. No, they are doing natural farming. They're using natural fertilizers. They have cows within the school project, and they get cow dung. That's what they use for making their manure. And then they told me they incorporate sometimes the students take milk, which is so rare with some schools anyway. But that's what I got from them. Then I had an interview with some of the students when we were in the garden. I asked them how best the project has helped them, and they were able to say the project has helped them with the knowledge that they have also gone back to their homes to do the same thing. Like they are teaching their parents what they have seen at home, at school. And at the same time, those parents who come to school to do the work have gone back with the same knowledge also, because they are wondering, this is something new to them, and you know, they didn't know they can actually produce something something big in a small area. They didn't know about that. For them, they knew it is all about a large piece of land, and then it's all about maybe one crop. If you say maize, then maize for the full acre and so on. But they realize that they can produce actually a full meal within a small garden. That was the feedback from students. But their cry was on they needed more training, because they think the training they get is a bit small. It's not enough, as they have to go to class, come back to school, go home, they do not really have enough time to do this. So what the administration has done to get these students fully engaged in this is that they have incorporated the permaculture in their syllabus. Now these students earn marks after them planting something in the school garden, and the teachers have to go and inspect that garden. They really have to see everything practically, like the agriculture lessons. That's what they use for permaculture training. So they have put it in a way that every class, like from senior one, once the students have come to school, like they are the new intake, they take this as a priority to make sure that this class gets their own garden and they are introduced to the permaculture classes within the agriculture lessons. And then they are given time during the agriculture lessons. Maybe they use some minutes for an introduction about this agriculture and then maybe some permaculture things. Then they tell them to go direct to the garden. That's why they have the school gardens within the compound. It is basically for practicals of the students. So I had a chance to meet the senior ones who were working on their garden, and they had just planted amaranth, as I said, with the guide of the teachers. And then I realized there was some gap in mulching, but they told me they were trying to slash behind so that they get the grass for mulching their gardens. I said that was fine, and then we tried to collect some few grass around, and then we did the mulching of the onions with the students collectively. So it was not just a matter of going to stand, inspect, and so on. No, we had to do some things practically, actually. And then the teachers also said their main issue is they need more practicals on making natural pesticides, because at times they get attacks for these plants, but they don't know how to help themselves. The best they can do is just to uproot that plant, and yet they think there is maybe a possible solution to help maybe make that plant survive. And then at the same time, at times they uproot this plant, yet the disease has already spread, or the pests have already spread the whole garden. So they need more help on pesticide making, and then of course they need an increase in the trainings, other trainings as well. That was the achievement that I should say was at the school. We also had a chance to do brick testing. We tested some of the plants, the nutrients. We were testing the nutrients of the foods that they have in the compound, and I shared the results with Steve and Matthew. Yeah, but when I see some of the results, most of them were really standard, like what is required of these plants, because they are using a natural method. So most of their plants were really of quality, apart from cabbages, which was a bit lower. I'm not yet so sure of why maybe the lower quality, because I didn't get chance to get the seed supplier. I tried to ask them for that, but they didn't have. They had already thrown away the containers that they had used for getting those seeds. So there maybe I would have gotten the variety, maybe the supplier and so on. But when it comes to the garden work, it was really done well. They did their best. Another challenge they had was there was too much sunshine that had somehow hit the plants, and that would have, in one way or the other, affected the results of the test, because maybe we expect this cabbage to be so watery, but because of the sunshine that had hit most of the outside cover of the cabbages, then it affects its results in one way or the other. At the same time, the tests were done at 3 p.m. when the sunshine had already cooled, because right now it's not rainy season, it's a bit dry in Rwanda. So that was the chance at Save School. And then I had a chance to go to some of the households in the village level. I had a chance to interact with the 3 households. One household didn't have the member at home, but since they know each other, these are the Rwanda Women Permaculture group. So they knew each other. One person led me to another home. So when we reached there, we didn't find her at home and she didn't have the phone, but we went ahead to see her garden and we saw what she did. What I realized was that these people had really owned the training that they got. The first household had really taken up the aspect of integrating a lot of crops, like mixed cropping in her garden. She had what is typically called a forest garden. In that garden, she had maize, she had cassava, she had amaranth that was now drying up, like they were now getting seeds from that, meaning she's at the same time practicing seed saving. She had potato vines that she said she's going to use for the season. When the season has started, she has enough, meaning she's not going to do buying of seeds, potato vines. She had trees like avocado in the same garden. There were mangoes, local mangoes in that very garden. And then they had just removed some beans also from the same garden. I toured the entire garden to find what other plants were in the garden. I also got the bananas. She had planted them in plenty. So this garden was typically a forest garden. And then the challenge I realized in that farm was basically pests. There is that white, I don't know how to call it. They call it white fly. That's according to them, but I don't know. I don't know much about it, but I sent the photos and Steve, you saw them. Maybe you will help the class to understand what kind of pest could be, or Gerald and other people, Deborah, Simon, and Caroline, you might be knowing that kind of pest. So that was the pest that was disturbing the fruits, most especially the mangoes. So it started affecting it at a smaller stage. So even the fruits that had already started coming up already had these pests on them. And I took a photo of that as well. There were also berries in the garden and I had a taste of it. That was the beauty. And then I moved to the next garden again of the same household. There was another garden and she had sorghum. She had some beans in it and then groundnuts in the same garden. Now she had started picking the beans because it was ready for picking. And then she also picked some maize, yes. And then the peanuts was still in the garden and the sorghum. That is the first household, but of course with other plants incorporated in it, as I said. And then I asked the mama about her challenges, other challenges. She also talked about drought, like it has been long without them getting water. So that is the main challenge they were facing. And I think I recorded some of her interviews, yes, and I will share with that. It was translated though, which is okay. And then we went to the second household. What I found in this household was that she had dug swales already in her garden, which was new to them, according to this mama. She said they didn't know anything about this because all along, they just used to plant things like that. And maybe when the rain comes, it washes away some, there was no water catchments and so on. But this time, because they learned how to dig the swales and these swales helped them to hold the water for some time within the garden without letting it go out. And they were really deep enough to hold the water. And then in her garden, in that lady's garden, she had just planted potatoes. There was cassava in the same garden, and the maize was to be removed in a short while. And then she also had some beans, those climbing beans, yes. And it was still green though, but the challenge also was the pests. There was some black pests that had already started affecting it. So still the same cry was how to manage these pests. So meaning they need an intervention on that using the local method. And then I moved to the third household. I didn't get a chance to interview that old mama because she wasn't at home. So we moved to the third household within the village. This woman has a small piece of land. But what impressed me was that she dug behind her house. She dug a hole, a deep hole, to help her hold the water that comes from her roof. And then there would be some water that would lead from the compound also coming out, because behind her house is a bit slopey. So she had a channel that would help lead that water that side. But also she had integrated a lot of crops. She had incorporated a lot of crops in that small piece of land. Some crops I'd never seen before. It was my first time to see them. And then she had some goats also kept around the house, behind the house. And she made sure that these goats would not destroy her plants. But she kept feeding the goats where she had tied them. It was really something impressive because she told me she gets these goat droppings direct to her garden, and then at times when the water, when a lot of things collect in this hole, and maybe when the water is over, when she has used it, there's some manure she gets from the mixture of things that must have entered her that hole. She disposes all that to the garden, and she gets more nutrients for her plants. I saw the bananas was extremely healthy. The yield was good, much as it was still small, but already it had a big bunch, like about 3 to 4 of them at the same time. That was a good feedback, looking at what she said, because she said she picks this manure and she puts it back to her garden. So we moved. That was the end of actually the Rwanda Permaculture tour. And then the next day, I went back to the city, that is to Rwanda. It takes, of course, like 2 to 3 hours to reach there. And then I had a night in Rwanda again. And then the next morning, we went to the Eastern Province, where the Rwanda Permaculture and the Save School is in the southern part of the country. So you realize there is that balanced distribution of the permaculture training. The next training center is in Eastern Province. I had a chance to meet with Barnabe, and we went up to his farm. The farm is about 4 acres. According to him, it's a family land, but they have given him the privilege to use it in whatever way. Before we went to the farm, I picked some fruits from the hotel where I was sleeping. That was in Lebanon. I picked sweet bananas, and then I picked lemons. I was interested in knowing what is the quality of whatever I'm eating, you know. So I went with it to the Eastern Province, and then I did a test early in the morning. And then before we left town, we had to take some dinner in some place within the city. I also didn't take it for granted. I took a chance to pick the cucumber, and I went with it. So I tested all those things early in the morning before setting off to the field of Barnabe. We also got a chance to pick the beans and the pumpkin leaves. As you know, most of these people eat. In Africa, we eat pumpkin leaves. It is a nutritious food. So I tested that, and then the beans. I tested the orange. I tested the cucumber, but I had challenges testing the banana because squeezing its juice was a bit difficult. But when I added some water, I used the handkerchief, a clean handkerchief, and then I put a slice of the banana inside. I squeezed it, but getting its juice was hard. But when I poured some little water in it, I added some water. Yes, I got some juice, but I wasn't sure of those results, So it's not really something I would want to base on because it is not its real juice because I added some water in it. And then we went to the field. Yes, Barnaba's farm, as I said, is around 4 acres. He has a lot of medicinal plants in this garden that I can't mention all of them. The best I can remember is Artemisia because I came with it also. And he had a lot of it hung up. He told me ever since he got that training, he started planting these trees, and he has been working in conjunction with the oil producing company in Rwanda, and they were able to produce the oils using some of these plants because there are some plants that are for oil making, and then there are those ones for medicine. And then I had chance to look around the food forest, and in his garden, he had a lot of things in the garden, and that would really show you what it means to have an integrated garden, because the guy had flowers in the same garden, and someone would just say, why is he wasting his time to put flowers in this garden? Why didn't he put only food? But the flowers were helping in pollination because they would attract the bees. And then he has a bee farm also within the same acre of land. What we took, the photos we took were basically within a small piece of land, I think. But there is a lot in the entire 4 acres. It's all used. There is nothing left. It's all used up to down going to the lake, because the farm is next to the lake. And he has also created a shelter where one can have a rest for if you want to have some fun, relax yourself and so on. You just go and sit there. That's where we did the testings from, as you're just next to the lake. We did a lot of tests there. We did carrots, we did onions, but the onions he had was the ones you eat, the leaves. He didn't have like that ball onions, no. And then we had the chance to test the beetroots. We had a chance to test the pawpaw. We had a chance to test the sugar cane. All these were found in the farm. And then other plants that were found in the farm were macadamia. I don't know how they call it well. I hope I have pronounced it well, but that was it. And then I had a chance to test what it was because it was my first time to see it. And then there was some new banana plant he had just introduced to his garden. He got it from Cameroon. So he's really trying all possible ways to do new things in his farm. And then currently he's partnering with some medical doctors from Rwanda. That's why he's planting medicinal plants so much, because they come to his farm, they pick them, they go and do the tests, trials, and so on. So that was my day in Eastern Province. We also had a chance to compare the results of this garden of permaculture, because purely it is permaculture that he uses. And then there is a garden just next to him, and those people had planted at this time. I got chance only to get the beans and the green pepper. That's what I got chance to test from their garden, as the maize was not yet ready for testing. Maybe I would have extracted some juice from it, but wasn't really ready. But those people use fertilizer. So I tested the green pepper and then the beans from the next farm. I also tested the pumpkin leaves, and the results were showing that theirs was the ones using permaculture had high nutrients, and the ones using fertilizers had lower nutrients. Maybe I'll wait to see the results for green pepper, because I had not yet known the complete interpretation of those results for green pepper, and maybe some other things. Basically, that was my trip. Thank you.
That's really, really, really fantastic report. And we looked at the photos of Barnaby's farm just before, so that really helped us visualize what you were seeing. Thank you. We're out of time now. We've finished our session, so it's been a really, really good session, and it's been so great to hear contributions from everybody. So I'm going to thank you so much, Stella, and I'm so glad we caught you there for the final bit. So that was really so interesting. I'm going to say goodnight to everyone, and I'm going to open it up if anybody would like to say a final greeting, or if you had a final just comment to make, anyone. But thank you, Stella. Thank you all. Thank you, everyone. We've had super contributions this week, and I'm really looking forward to and I think going forward, we'll start to focus on practical sessions, like what you said, Andre, and I think we might invite one person to be the focal point, and if we want to bring in a particular outside person, we can plan for that as well. So that's another thing we can talk about next week. So I don't want to take any more time because we've gone over time. I just want to say thank you, and I'm going to hand over to you, Gerald. I'm going to say goodnight, and thanks everybody for
misbehaving.
the session.
Your broadband had really dropped, and we could barely hear you for about a minute.
Okay, sorry about that. I was just wrapping up and saying that was such a good report from everyone, really. And any final comments? Gerald, over to you, just to say goodnight, really. We've gone over time. Simon is there with his hand up.
But to thank everyone, Stella. Oh, that was really mind-blowing. It's making us, believe these paradises somewhere, which really is very possible. It's not, theoretical or sort of a fantasy story. It's real, and every one of us can do that. It takes putting to practice what we've covered over the 22 sessions, 23 including this, and the will and getting started. Sure. And as Steve said, I think my suggestion would be now, as a way going forward, probably now starting to look at specific sessions. We could also look at hosting someone with expertise, let's say, on mushroom farming, or those specific sessions, especially around enterprise development. Maybe things like project management. How do you draw out your project? So probably those are some of the things we'll get to discuss in the next session, but I think that would be also a good route to take. Otherwise, Simon, is it a new hand? And are you able to compress that in 2 minutes, please?
Yes, it is a new hand.
Yes,
Now,
please.
I'd want to talk on what Stella has gotten from the field. That pesticide that has disturbed my fellow people from a culture from Rwanda is all about the aphids. The protozoa causa. So that one is easily managed by a pesticide that I can make it for it. So that one will be for the next session since we are closing it up. Thank you.
Thank you, Simon. That was exactly 1 minute and 46 seconds. Well done, well done. So anyone else with a closing thought? Caroline?
No, Gerald, bye-bye. This has
All right.
been pretty interesting.
Okay.
It's so inspiring to see what the Rwanda women have done now. I'm really feeling inspired and motivated.
Wow, great to hear.
That's wonderful,
Stella,
wonderful.
Stella, that's beautiful feedback to
Yeah.
pass on to our colleagues in Rwanda. Thank you,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Steve.
Before you close,
Yes,
Barnaby is open to host the permaculture team from Sector 39 in its farm. There is opportunity there. There is a training shed. There is a store. He's also looking at doing some constructions now to help host the trainees within the campus so that they don't need to rent outside or go somewhere else. So maybe this is what we could look into. Thank you.
wow. You're making us start to think about the destination for our next PDC.
Okay, everyone.
Right.
Thank you, Jeff.
Indeed, it can be the best. That's what I can say.
What a team. What a team. Amazing, amazing work, everybody. Thank you so much. It's been a really great session, and I'm also super motivated. So I wish you all Nostar, Lala Salama.
Nasta, Lala Salama.
Nasta. Caroline, Lala Salama.
Bye.
Simon
Stella, you didn't
Ojotoro
give me a
joke.
parrot.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
Simon, how do you
Bye-bye.
say it? In
Ojotoro
Idris?
joke.
Ojotore Joko.
Ojotoro joke.
Ojotoro joke.
Oh,
Hey.
Totoro joke.
Bye-bye.
Oh,
Okay, bye-bye.
okay.
Bye-bye.
Good night, everybody. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.